morning, everyone.
Can't hear.
Hello, Shritama?
Hello, good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible now.
Okay.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes. So now we are going to start our today's session. We welcome you all to today's session of Enhancing Brain Functioning During COVID-19 Pandemic and Strategies for Well-Being, organized by NAMAH Foundation. NAMAH Foundation, National Association of Mental Health and Allied Health Foundation, has registered under the Trust Act. The trust deed of the NAMAH Foundation aims to work with communities to build awareness on mental health, enable early detection of any mental illness, and to aid, assist, provide, and offer comprehensive care and professional counseling services and high quality mental health services to promote and enhance the overall well-being, retention, and success of our clients of various backgrounds and ages. Our primary services is to work with clients collaboratively in a gentle, caring, and warm-hearted way to ensure that they are heading down the right path in the dark moments. The services are designed to strengthen individuals and family members to activate their inner resilience and build new skills to overcome obstacles. The counseling and psychotherapy approaches strive to instill hope in the settlement and personal healing process. This will help individuals to foster personal growth and achieve their life goals. Today's session is going to be conducted by Mr. Sakit Reddy sir. He is a final year PhD student at the Center for Consciousness Studies at NIMHANS, Bangalore. He has a master's degree in biotechnology and a bachelor's degree in pharmacy from BITS Pilani, Hyderabad campus. His PhD work focuses on understanding the effects of yoga and meditation on the brain. He has recently co-founded a well-being startup called All Ears, which is created with a vision of bringing in an integrative approach to well-being and taking the science and tools of well-being to the world. He is also passionate about sustainability and ecology. On behalf of NAMAH Foundation, we'll welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shritama. Can you all see me and hear me properly?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, NAMAH Foundation, and thank you, Dr. Devasis ji, for organizing this. I think it's a very important seminar in the times we live in right now. So before we go to the webinar, I just want to understand, my audience. So how many psychologists are here? You can just unmute yourself and just let me know. How many psychologists? How many counselors? Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. Hello.
We can hear you.
Yeah, just let me know how many. What do you all do? Are all students here? Okay, Anusha is a psychologist. Okay. Others, let it be a more interactive session than a monotonous thing.
Hello, sir. Myself Sritama. I'm a clinical psychologist, currently based on Kolkata.
Okay. Others,
Me too, sir.
clinical psychologist. Agrima?
My name is a clinical psychologist, yes, sir, from Kolkata.
Oh, nice. And how many counselors? Student counselor from Trichy. Okay, fine. All right. I will share my screen. Just let me know if it is coming. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Is it full screen?
No, sir. It is not full screen.
One minute. Yeah. Is it full screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome you all for this presentation on the topic enhancing brain functioning during COVID-19 pandemic strategies for well-being. So you can just whenever you feel that something is going over your head, you can just unmute yourself and let me know. Or if you have any questions in the middle, please ask me. Okay. So it can be a more interactive session than one way thing. So we all know what we are going through right now. Since the onset of COVID-19 in December 2019, there has been as of today there have been 10 million cases and more than 4.4 million deaths. So it's a huge toll. So apart from that, apart from the usual mortality, there has been a huge, immense collateral damage which is caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. One of which is the mental health issues which have arisen dramatically since the onset of COVID-19 pandemic. So as you can see here, these are the headlines of some of the leading newspapers and magazines. The Forbes one talks about COVID-19 might lead to a mental health pandemic. So apart from the COVID-19 pandemic, we also have this mental health pandemic which is looming and which presents a great challenge to all the psychologists and counselors in the country. So how do we deal with this is a big challenge. And this is by New York Times, which talks about what's the point young people's despair deepens as COVID-19 crisis drags on. So COVID-19 has affected people differently. Say young people have been affected much more because of social isolation and online classes which have been going on. So disproportionately affected. So this talks about COVID-19 pandemic likely have profound effects on mental health. This is in Indian Express published 2 days back. COVID has exacted heavy mental health toll. System must be prepared to provide care. So there's a huge demand supply gap right now. There's a huge demand for mental health issues, but the supply is very less. So that's the reason the world is shifting towards digital interventions more and more. Telehealth services, digital interventions, which are likely to bridge the gap between this demand and supply. So let's see the scenario pre-COVID. So this is the prevalence of mental and substance use disorders in 2017. So if you see, in the year 2017, there were 970 million people affected by any mental or substance use disorder. So the majority of them were anxiety disorders, which affected 3.76% of the population globally. Then comes depression with 3.44%. Then alcohol use disorders and others. So this is a huge number even during the pre-COVID times. And this was a landmark study published in the Lancet journal last year, which talked about the prevalence in India. The previous one was globally, this is in India. So this report revealed that 1 among every 7 people in India had a mental disorder in 2017. And this proportion almost doubled from 1990 to 2017. So this is a huge burden on the country. And another landmark study which was published by NIMHANS in 2015 showed that the prevalence was 10.6% in the age group 18 plus. So this translates to almost 150 million people needing treatment in the year 2015. So the lifetime prevalence was 13.6%, and 150 million Indians required treatment and support in 2015. So one important thing to note here is that this is just clinically diagnosed. There are so many people who are living with undiagnosis, because of stigma, because of, which is being, because of the stigma which has been there in the mental health field for a long time now. People are not able to come approach a psychologist or a psychiatrist and disclose what they're going through, because of which the real numbers might be way higher. We don't know the real numbers. It's difficult to study that. And let us look at the scenario post-COVID. So post-COVID, because of isolation, because of unemployment, because of many other factors, the mental health issues have increased dramatically. So if you see this, this is in the UK. Pre-COVID, depression was 10%. Symptoms of depression was 10% in the population. But whereas in June, after the COVID, it increased to 19%. And in the US, adults reporting anxiety or depression, pre-COVID, it was 11%. And post-COVID, it increased by almost 4 times to 42%. So it's a jump of almost 3 to 4 times. And this was a report published by the CDC, USA CDC, last year, which showed that last June, 40% of US adults reported struggling with mental health or substance use disorder. So anxiety depression symptoms were 31%, which was 3 times more than the previous year. And symptoms of depressive disorder was 4 times more than the previous year. So you can see the jump in the mental health disorders since COVID. So this is a serious situation which will only get worse if we don't take the right action and equip people with appropriate tools of well-being. So this was a meta-analysis systematic review which was published just 2 days back, which talks about the prevalence in different populations. For example, these are healthcare workers who are most affected because of close contact with the patients, and because of the working conditions, they have been affected immensely. So the anxiety levels, the prevalence of anxiety was 12 to 45% in this age group, and depression was 20 to 51%, and burnout was 29%. Burnout is a big problem right now. So how do we deal with this burnout is a big question. And there have been sleep problems in majority of the population. And prevalence of mental health problems also is very high in people with comorbid, with pre-existing health conditions like cancer, type 2 diabetes, obesity, all these conditions. They are much more likely to be affected by any mental health issue like anxiety and depression. So which here it shows that depression, 50% prevalence is there in this group, and even children and adolescents have been severely impacted. So these are the populations which we need to target more and provide them with tools of well-being. So with this background about how COVID-19 has impacted our brain and the prevalence of mental health issues, let us go into brain. Try to understand what brain is, and then with a brief background of what brain is, we will try to understand different strategies for well-being. So human brain, as you know, it's the most complex organ in the world. It just weighs 1.3 kg. That is, it is less than 2% of the body's weight, and it has 86 billion neurons. To give an understanding of the number, we have as many neurons as there are stars in the galaxy. So that's how complex it is. And each neuron then communicates, it's called as forming synapse. It forms synapse with 10,000 other neurons. So that leads to 100 trillion connections which human brain has. So this is an immense network. It's the most complex brain on the planet and highly evolved. especially in some parts of the brain. So if you see, this part of the brain is called as the prefrontal cortex. So this is the one which is most highly developed and evolved in human beings compared to any other species. The sole objective of the brain is to keep you alive, that is survival, and pass on the genes to the next generation. So that's the only thing. And as I told, we have the most complex brain. And with the complex brain, we have this rich set of cognitive skills, two of which are very important are memory and imagination. So if you just notice, we are the only species who can think of abstract things. We can think, we can imagine things which don't exist in nature. Other species, they are rooted in the biological reality, but we can think of things which don't exist in nature. So that is what which sets us apart from other species and also has given rise to the civilization. So what is mind? So this is a big question. You're all psychologists, so you have a particular perspective about what is mind. But you should be knowing that there are different perspectives even for the mind. Say, from the neuroscience point of view, mind is nothing but a set of operations carried out by the brain. So there is this brain-mind connection, and the base is the brain, and then there's the mind. But this is not a perspective which is held by different by different traditions. For example, the Eastern traditions have a different perspective on the mind, and the yogic traditions have a different perspective on the mind. So this is one thing which we need to keep in mind. And one amazing aspect about the brain is it functions in networks. So it's brain never operates as single unit, one particular region for one particular function. It's not like that. It operates as a network all the time. So there have been several intrinsic brain networks which have been identified, starting from visual network. So this is the network which is responsible for vision. So this is the part of the brain called as the occipital cortex, which is responsible for visual processing. So like that, we have different networks. This is dorsal attention network, which is responsible for attentional processing. Then there is language network. There's executive network, which is responsible for decision making. Then there is this default mode network. It's also called as mentalizing network. This is the network of brain regions which are activated when our mind is wandering. When we are thinking about something, like daydreaming. And then there is ventral attention salience network. There is limbic network, which is very important for emotion processing. So like this, brain operates in networks. And one amazing aspect about the brain is neuroplasticity. I think you all would have heard about neuroplasticity. So as the word neuroplasticity suggests, plastic means something which is flexible. So neuroplastic means the brain is flexible. So it can be defined as a term that refers to brain's ability to modify, change, and adapt both structure and function throughout life and in response to experience. So brain is constantly shaping itself to experience. It's not rigid in nature. It is constantly adapting, changing, modifying its connections, functionally to experience and to sensory experiences. For example, right now, as you listen to me, there is some neuroplasticity which is happening in your, say, memory networks. You're learning new information. There's more connections being formed. So this process happens throughout life. But there are some critical periods where the neuroplasticity is very high. For example, as you can see here, in the stage of development, plasticity is very, very high. Brain is most flexible during that developmental phase. So that's the reason, childhood experiences are very important. Parenting plays a very important role because this is the critical period during which brain shapes itself, and this will affect a person throughout his life. So how a person is in adulthood and later life depends to a very large extent on how his childhood has been. So you have to, if you have children at your home, you need to take care of this aspect a lot. And this plasticity decreases over a period of time. As you can see, it decreases into adulthood and it decreases even further as you age. So, but it's important to note that brain is plastic all the time. Even if you are into adulthood, you can still impact your brain in a very dramatic manner, but it is much lesser compared to the developmental phase. So if this neuroplasticity is dysregulated, it leads to many disorders, including dementia, schizophrenia, depression. So many other factors which happen as people age. So, as a psychologist, you should always remember this neuroplasticity in the mind, because whatever a person might have gone through in his life, there is still, if enough effort is put, one can change his life the way you want. So, this is very important. So human brain modifies, changes, and adapts continuously throughout life in response to everything we do and every experience we have. So that's the reason it is important to keep in mind the experiences we have and choose everything consciously. For example, everything starting from, how you interact with people, what kind of things you do for your health, everything impacts your brain. So if you are interested about learning more about neuroplasticity, these are some of the very good books on that. Okay, now with this brief understanding about the brain, intrinsic brain networks, and can you all hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah, please let me know in case you have any doubts, okay? So we have so far discussed about the intrinsic brain networks, neuroplasticity, and the complexity of the human brain. So how does our brain differ from other species brains? So if you can see here, this is the human brain, and you can see the chimp's brain, dog's brain, cat's brain, squirrel monkey's brain, rhesus monkey's brain. So if you can notice, there's a critical difference, there's a big difference in this part of the human brain, which I told you about, which is the prefrontal cortex. So this prefrontal cortex is the biggest in humans, and it has the most number of neurons than any other species. That's the reason humans can make decisions the way they want. They can live consciously, which other species cannot. So that is the human advantage. This cortical neurons is the human advantage, which neuroscientist Susano Herculano Hausel talks about remarkably in this book called The Human Advantage. So here I will ask you a few questions. You can just unmute one by one, not at once, but one by one. You can just unmute and let me know what are some of the unique human abilities compared to other species. Can you people answer based on your Okay, yeah, that's right. Next. What other aspects which are present in no other species? So that's right, what you said, executive functioning. Others?
So the other emotional functioning as well.
Emotions, yeah, to a certain extent, but not exactly, because even other, say, primates have emotions. Even that's not a very different.
Imagination and thinking.
Exactly, imagination and thinking. Exactly, abstract thinking. And creativity, exactly. Again, all the aspects related to this prefrontal cortex. Next, any other you can think of? which are very apparent actually.
Logical thinking.
Which one? Come again?
Logical thinking. Yeah. Logical thinking, sir. Logical
Meditation.
thinking and
Yeah,
Yes?
right, that's right. And any others you can think of? I'll just give you one clue. How do we walk?
complex action,
Complex action. We have
planning
to.
and
Yeah,
planning, problem solving.
exactly. Everything again, planning, problem solving, decision making, judgment. Everything is responsible for the this prefrontal cortex. So, what about this? Bipedalism, tool use, and cooking. We are the only primate which is bipedal. Walking on two legs. This is a very very important factor because this happened like 4 to 6 million years ago, where primates, the previous this thing of Homo sapiens, they were like this, more and more walking on four legs, and then it became more and more bipedal as time passed. So what happened is, with this bipedalism, hands became free. Hands became free, and then they could use these hands to make tools. So because of tools, fire came, and because of fire, over a period of time, cooking happened. So cooking is one thing which only we do and no other species does. This is responsible actually for the expansion of the human brain which happened. So because of cooking, we can take in a lot more nutrients than other species. For example, if you take a chimpanzee or any other primate, it spends almost 8 to 10 hours every day just eating, because it has a huge body size. To support that huge body size, it needs a lot of nutrients. But whereas humans, we can probably say eat 1,000 calories in less than 15 minutes. So because of that huge nutrients which we can take in a short span of time, there is this expansion of the brain which happened over a period of time. So this is a very unique feature. And then there is theory of mind, language, culture, and these two are the very important things: rich cognitive skills and living consciously. So this is only possible in human beings living consciously. So what is the? I will talk about just two aspects related to these abilities: theory of mind and living consciously. So theory of mind. This is the ability to infer mental states to self and others. For example, I know right now what is happening in my mind. Similarly, if you just take a moment and look at what's happening in your mind, you can notice that you are thinking in a certain way, and you can also attribute mental states to others. You can infer what other people might be going through in their mind, right? So this is a very unique human ability. So ability to be aware of one's own thoughts, emotions, and create them the way you want is a unique human ability and capability. So the next one is next and the most important ability which differentiates human beings from every other species on the planet is living consciously. We can live consciously because of this, the gift of evolution, I would say. This brain is a gift of evolution, and because of which we have this rich sense of memory and imagination. And we can live consciously. Live consciously means everything that you do can be out of awareness. You can choose to live consciously. How you say, what kind of food you eat, how you interact with people, and what kind of thoughts you think. Everything can be done consciously. So this is only possible for human beings. So with this background about the unique human abilities, the human brain, neuroplasticity, and the brain networks. We'll try to understand in the next probably 20, 25 minutes, try to understand well-being from this perspective. How living consciously will lead to well-being, and also how you can harness the uh, brain's neuroplastic ability for your own benefit. So, what exactly is well-being? So, there have been many definitions which have been given by WHO, CDC, NIMH, USA. So, it's like there's a lot of overlap, but at the same time, there's a lot of differences also between how well-being is approached and what exactly is well-being. So to keep it simple and make it understandable, well-being can be defined as a feeling of pleasantness within, which is not influenced by anything external. So right now, if you just notice how your body is, how your mind is it pleasant or unpleasant? You just answer yourself. If you feel a sense of pleasantness and you feel good about life in general, what is happening within you, then you are well. So feeling well and pleasant at the level of body, mind, and energies is well-being. And this is not dependent on anything external. You don't have to do anything on the outside to be well. So this independence of one's internal state is very important. So for the sake of convenience, we can divide well-being. And one more thing I did not talk about here is, especially the Western psychology, it talks about hedonic and eudaimonic well-being. But even that, that approach talks about the external factors. So this is something which I'm trying to talk about, which is well-being internally, which is not dependent on anything external. So for the sake of convenience, we can divide well-being into different types: physical, mental, social, spiritual, and ecological well-being. So as psychologists and counselors, you focus on the mental well-being to a great extent. So, but one thing which is very important is that mind and body, and also all other aspects, spiritual, ecological, are all connected. So for this presentation, let us just focus on the mind and body. The mind and body are deeply connected. They are not separate entities. So as psychologists, you tend to focus only on the mental health. Mental health means like you focus only on the mind and ignore the body and other aspects. And if you talk about well-being to an allopathic doctor, he focuses only on the physical health and totally ignores the mental aspects of well-being. So say in case you visit a doctor and you have some symptoms of some digestive disorder, you have like say constipation or something like some irritable bowel syndrome kind of thing, and you go to a doctor and you ask him like about the situation that you're facing. Doctor would never ask you, are you stressed out? Are you eating fine? He would just give you some medication, prescribe some medicines, that's all. So he would completely eliminate the mind aspect from the physical health. And if you go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, he focuses only on the mind, and he or she would ignore the physical aspects. He would not ask you, are you sleeping well? How is your food? How is your activity? How are your social connections? Do you practice meditation? So he ignores the physical part. So this mind-body duality is been there in this field of Western medicine and also psychology for a long time. So this dates back to the French philosopher Rene Descartes, where he talked about this mind-body duality. But right now, with all the evidence, we clearly know that mind and body are deeply connected. So what you do at the level of mind affects the body. So the kind of thoughts you think, the kind of emotions you have influences the body, and other way. What you do to your body affects the mind. So this is a very important thing which is missing right now. And so we need to approach well-being in a holistic and integrated manner and not distinctly. That's very important. So we have talked about for this webinar, we're just focusing on the mind and body, which because these are the most important things. So when it comes to well-being at the level of body, so when I talk about well-being at the level of body, please keep in mind that whatever you do to your at the level of physicality affects your mind, and whatever you do at the level of mind affects the body. Please keep this in mind. So when we talk about body, there are three things which are important: food, nutrition, obviously, sleep, and physical activity. So food, for example, the first one we'll take food. So what kind of food is good for your body at the same time which is good for the mind? So there's a clear science. There's a field of psychiatry called as nutritional psychiatry, which tries to understand the connection between the food and the mood and emotions and thoughts, everything. So there is now a clear scientific evidence which shows that what kind of food is good for the body and mind. So the consensus is that raw, unprocessed, plant-based food is the best for the body and mind. So if you, for example, if you might have heard about the Mediterranean diet, which focuses predominantly on the plant-based food with minimal consumption of dairy and red meat. So it's a very important thing for mental well-being as well. And eat whole food, avoid junk, because processed food influences the mind. Processed, even ultra processed food, for example, whatever you consume you might consume every day or sometimes a week at least. So this influences the mind. So what is the connection between this and the mind? Research is still ongoing, but one interesting link is the gut-brain axis. So in the gut, in the human gut, we have this microorganisms several times more than the human cells. Actually, studies show that microorganisms outnumber human cells by almost 10:1, if I'm not wrong. So we have more microbes in our gut than human cells. So these microorganisms help in immunity, help in digesting food, everything. So this microbiota, it's called as microbiota. This microbiota gets altered, gets changed because of the food you eat. So if you eat whole food, if you eat a lot of plant-based food, you keep the microbiota well. And if you eat very unprocessed and ultra-processed food, you alter this gut microbiota, and this gut microbiota in turn influences the brain. So there is this connection between the gut and the brain, which is the gut-brain axis. So there is one way this happens is through the vagus nerve. It's one of the cranial nerves, 10th cranial nerve, which directly connects from the gut to the brain. So that's why always keep in mind the kind of food you eat, say, and when you talk to your clients, just ask them what kind of food they are eating. Make sure they eat a very raw kind of food. At least 50% is good, if not majority. And eat with gratitude. It's very important factor. People, if you see these days, they eat in a hurry. They eat as if there's no time for eating. So that's not at all good for the mind again, because when you eat in hurriedness, or when you are not feeling well, say you have just fought with somebody, there's anger within you, and then you sit for eating. It's not good to eat like that, because the kind of emotions, the kind of thoughts you have before eating also influences how the food behaves in the body and how it influences the mind in turn. So eat with gratitude and fast periodically. Fasting is immensely beneficial for one's health, because it leads to certain rejuvenation at the cellular level, and also it enhances brain function as well. So there is this thing called as BDNF, which is called as the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is critical factor in neuroplasticity. So this BDNF, gets stimulated or gets released when you fast, and that leads to certain changes in the certain neuroplastic changes in the prefrontal cortex and other memory forming regions. So it's very simple when it comes to food, okay, as I told you. And the next important thing is sleep. Always aim for sleep. We tend to ignore a lot. The kind of lives we live, the technology. It's like sleep has become very less important. So aim for quality sleep. Try to maintain proper sleep hygiene. Okay. Say if you go to bed at 10 o'clock in the night, 11 o'clock in the night, stick to that every day, and wake up at the same time. Wake up at the same time. Sleep at same time. So there's a proper harmony in the body. So there is something called as circadian rhythm, where body is in sync with the planet. So during the night time, melatonin gets released, and that helps in proper sleep. So if you use a lot of technology at night, for example, that hinders the production of melatonin, and that leads to poor sleep. Or if you use, if you drink a lot of coffee also, it also again hinders the production of melatonin. So like that, so some things you need to take care of your sleep, because sleep is a very important factor, and poor sleep is associated with many mental disorders, depression, anxiety. It's both ways actually. Because of poor sleep, you develop these mental issues, and because of mental issues, you tend to have poor sleep, and it's a vicious cycle. So, so there are some things which you can do before sleeping. For example, you can, make sure that you go to sleep at least 2 to 3 hours after your dinner, so that the food is digested and you don't go to bed on a full stomach. Also, you can just one thing which is very good is you can just do some simple pranayama. Say some 5 to 10 minutes of pranayama before going to sleep, so that you relax yourself and then go to sleep. You can just take a warm water bath, and you can maintain a journal towards in the night. So there are several things you can do to maintain that your sleep is good. And physical activity. So this is a exercise, and physical activity is very important for the brain and also the body. And invest in physical activity every day, whatever form it is. It could be, you could be exercising, you could be playing something, or whatever you can invest some time. So according to the US FDA guidelines, 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity needs to be maintained every week. This is for adults. So make sure that you get at least 15 minutes to 30 minutes per day. Just it can be brisk walking, or just play something with your family members, whatever it is. Make sure your body is moving. Don't let this sedentariness seep into your life, because sedentary lifestyle is one of the biggest risk factors for mental illness. There's metabolic syndrome, diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease. All these things are very closely connected. So physical activity, maintaining physical activity is one of the best ways to ensure that you stay healthy and well at the level of body and mind. So as I told you, this is the field of nutritional psychiatry, which talks about how the food you eat affects your mind. So it's simple actually. Keep in mind that you need to have a lot of plant-based food, include a lot of fruits, different types of fruits, include different types of vegetables of different colors, eat a lot of spices, have whole grains, and keep the meat and red meat as minimum as possible, and avoid junk totally, and also avoid refined sugars. Refined sugar is extremely bad. And And how, like I talked about physical activity, right? It's so important that recently, like a couple of months back, a big study was uh, published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, which talks about the influence of physical activity on COVID-19 outcomes. So this, they analyzed 48,440 adult patients who were admitted into hospitals, and they correlated this COVID-19 outcome with their physical activity. So they divided these people into three groups: those with no activity at all, that is, those who are leading sedentary lifestyle; those who are having mild physical activity, that is from say 11 minutes to 150 minutes, and those who are physically active, that is those who are having 150 minutes of physical activity per week, 150 minutes or more. So what they found was this: those who were leading sedentary lifestyle, come when compared to most active, were more than twice as likely to be hospitalized, 73% more likely to be admitted to an ICU, and 2.5 times more likely to die. So from this you can imagine how important is physical activity and also other factors. So whether you will develop severe symptoms for COVID or mild symptoms for COVID depends on your lifestyle factors. There's clear evidence for that. So make sure you are eating well, sleeping well, and maintaining at least 150 minutes of physical activity per week. So this is about the body. But please keep in mind, whatever you do at this level of body also influences the mind. So when it comes to the mind, it's simple actually. We need not make it complicated at all. Mental well-being happens if one knows how to handle one's mind. It's as simple as that. But how do we do this? There's a lot of science behind it, and also so many tools available to understand one's own mind and handle one's own mental activity. So, as I told in the beginning, human beings, when compared to other species on the planet, are endowed with a rich set of cognitive skills, that is, memory and imagination. So, this memory and imagination is an evolutionary gift, and we should be able to handle our memory and imagination. That is, what we think, what we imagine should be conscious. It should not be happening unconsciously. So, but the problem is our minds are always wandering. It's either in the past, thinking about something which happened like yesterday or last week, or thinking about what is going to happen, or imagining about something what is going to come tomorrow or day after tomorrow. It is never rooted in the present moment. So this is the whole issue actually. So this a big study published in the journal Science in 2010 showed that a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. So if your mind is wandering all the time, you tend to think, unpleasant things as well, right? So, and research shows that we spend more than 50% of our time in mind wandering. That is, say right now you are listening to me, but your mind might be somewhere else. Say mind might be thinking about what is going to happen today evening. Today's Raksha Bandhan, so you might be having some festivals at home. So you might be thinking about that Raksha Bandhan thing, or say something happened yesterday with one of your clients or one of your friends, and they said something bad to you. You might be thinking about that, constantly ruminating about it. See, so your body is here, but your mind is somewhere else. So that is mind wandering. So the brain network, default mode network, which I talked about earlier, there are several intrinsic brain networks. One of which is default mode network. So that's the network which is active when your mind is wandering. So this is called as psychological existence. You're always living in the head. You're thinking right now about the future or about the past. So that is, you're living in the head. You're not living in what's happening right now. So this is the essence of why we have stress and anxiety, depression. Many other factors are because of this simple fact. And this can be trained. As I told, brain is extremely neuroplastic. We can train our brain to work for our benefit. Everything that we do influences the brain. It makes changes in the brain regions responsible for bringing mind more and more to the present moment. So, as I told, this is the network which is responsible when your mind is wandering, default mode network. And say when you train your mind to be more in the present moment, the activity of this network goes down. Say you are more very rooted to the present moment right now. Say you're listening to me with total focus, and your mind is only here and not anywhere else. So that's when the activity in this network is at the lowest. And when you are mind wandering, you're daydreaming, you're thinking about something else, this network is activated. And overactivation of this network leads to, is associated with anxiety, depression, and many other mental stress, for example, many other mental issues. So bringing this network under control is a very important thing. And this can be held in control by this dorsal attention network, ventral attention network, and executive networks. So these three networks can hold this in check. So that's the whole thing. So ultimately it comes down to how you handle your mind. So it's already 10:35. So we'll have a brief experiment right now. Like for the next 7 minutes, I'll keep the time. Is everybody with me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll have a brief experiment now. For the next 7 minutes, I will keep the time. You just sit, close your eyes, and just don't do anything. Just observe your mind. Okay. Shall we start? Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. So shall we start this experiment?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. I'm keeping time. So yeah, you can just everybody close your eyes and then just do nothing. Just observe your mind. Okay. Start. I'm giving the time. 7 minutes is done, you can just unmute yourself and share your experience. When you closed your eyes and sat for 7 minutes, observing your mind, how was it like? How was your mind like? Was it in the present moment, or was it going here and there, to the past, to the memory, to the imagination, thinking about something? You can just unmute yourself and let me know. Anyone?
Sir, it was going from past to future, future to past, some hard feelings.
Okay.
It was not stable. What is going to happen in the future? All those imaginations.
Yeah, so the memory and imagination. It was not in the present moment, correct?
Yeah. Most of the time it was not in the present. Even it was on the present, I would say that it was focusing more on the aches and pains that was evident while sitting, or that we don't focus generally, we just ignore. So the conscience goes there also.
Correct. Any other person wants to share? How was your mind like? Because as a psychologist, you should, the most important thing that you have to do is you have to understand how your own mind functions. With that understanding, you would treat your patient.
हेलो
Yeah, Rinki Kumari.
सर, मैं बताना चाहूँगी मेरा माइंड जब मैंने आइज़ क्लोज करी थी, सो जैसा सभी जानते हैं फेस्टिवल है आज रक्षाबंधन का। सो मेरे माइंड में पहले तो यही चल रहा था मुझे नेक्स्ट करना क्या है अभी, एंड देन ये चल रहा था मैं आंसर क्या करूँगी अभी, अगर सर पूछ रहे हैं कि क्या चल रहा है माइंड में, बस यही चल रहा था। इधर उधर की थोड़ी वॉइस जो है वो आ रही थी, और बस यही था नेक्स्ट क्या करूंगी क्या करना है अभी। That's it, sir. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Rinki Kumari. Yeah, that's the way mind works.
Thank you, sir.
Any other person wants to share, like, how is your mind functioning? Was it stable in the present moment, or was it thinking about yesterday, or thinking about tomorrow, or today Raksha Bandhan? Can you others share? Anyone wants to share? Yeah, it's okay. So the
Hello.
Yeah, please tell me.
I am sharing my experiences.
Yeah, please share.
Actually, whenever I just close my eyes, I just concentrate myself that now I am in a piece of my mind and concentrating now, and nothing else coming. Just if it is coming, then I throw out it. Okay, just concentrating what is going on present moment. So because I know that it is only 7 minutes, I have to concentrate it.
Okay.
So that is the thing I observed. Yeah.
Nice. So right now the problem is we have never been in our education system, say starting from school to college to university, we have never been taught how to handle our mind. So we have been taught every other thing, like starting from science, mathematics to history, geography, everything, but we have never been taught how to handle our own mind. So that's the big problem right now, and we need to fix this if we want to, impact society, impact every other thing that's happening around us. So this is a very important thing, which even every psychologist needs to do. So why I did this activity is because a similar kind of thing was done in an experiment, which was published in the journal Science, which showed that people were rather willing to shock themselves than to be left alone with their thoughts. Because to be left alone with your thoughts is hard if your mind is not trained. Because you might be thinking about something bad which happened, say 1 year ago, that just resurfaces to your mind, and then you feel depressed, you feel agitated about what happened. So these kind of things tend to happen when you just try to sit and stay still, observe your mind. So people can't handle this activity. So that's why in this experiment, the students in these experiments, the students were told to spend 6 to 15 minutes of time in a room by themselves with nothing to do but think. So when this happened, some of the participants, they wanted to give shock to themselves than to be thinking about their own thoughts. So this is the only issue actually. Is your mind working the way you want it, or it is not? This is the only issue. And how can we try to train this mind, which is going here and there all the time, to be more stable and to be more present in the moment? So that's where meditation comes into the picture. So it is not, it is not something which is which belongs to a certain religion or certain philosophical system. It's a scientific process, and it's a tool to know how your own mind works, and thereby taking charge of your mental faculties, which include memory and imagination. So your mind has to happen consciously. Say what you think, what you feel should happen the way you want, not some other way. Is it possible? Yes, it is definitely possible. How is it possible? There are several tools available which will make this happen. So meditation is such a tool. So meditation, what it does is it leads to a clear distinction between what is you and what is not you. So this is called as cognitive distancing in psychology. So there's a distance which arises between what you consider as yourself and what you consider as your mind. So this distinction, when it comes, then there won't be any mental issues at all. So this leads to meta-awareness. You become aware of what's happening in your own mind, and you can take charge of what's happening. So this cognitive distancing and meta-awareness is what meditation leads to. So as I told, meditation leads to more present moment awareness and less of mind wandering. So this was a study published in the journal PNAS, which showed that there's a decreased default mode network activity in meditators. So default mode network, if you remember, is the network which is responsible for the mind wandering. And if the mind is wandering, for example, somebody shared that their mind was wandering here and there. Somebody shared that she was thinking about Rakhi. So in that instance, this default mode network was active. So if you train your mind to be in the present moment, then this default mode network activity goes down. So this is what happens with meditation practice. So this is an MRI finding. These are the two different brain regions: medial prefrontal cortex and posterior cingulate cortex, which are the ones which are involved in this default mode network. And this brain regions get deactivated. The activity decreases in meditators compared to controls. So what you see here is the fMRI bold change, and on the x-axis you see meditators and controls. So in the controls, that is with people with no meditation experience, the default mode network activity went up, whereas in the meditators, the default mode network activity came down. That means they're more focused on what they're doing in the present moment. And controls, their mind was wandering to either past or future. And because that happens, it leads to stress, anxiety, all these mental issues. So meditation leads to neuroplasticity in brain regions responsible for self-regulation. So this is the most important thing which meditation does. And it predominantly, it impacts a lot of other brain regions, but to a great extent, it influences this prefrontal cortex. And several studies exist right now, like many done by our own lab and also many other researchers all over the world. meditation experience is associated with increased cortical thickness. Mindfulness practice leads to increases in regional brain gray matter density, enhanced brain connectivity in long-term meditation practitioners. So there is so much scientific evidence to show that regular meditation practice leads to the structural and functional brain changes. And you might be thinking, how much time to invest in meditation per day? Studies, in fact, show that spending as less as 15 minutes per day for 20 days leads to well-being changes. So it's a very short investment of time, but it leads to a big difference in your life. So I will end with some of the resources for well-being. There are several resources available for well-being, and these are some of the best available, starting from Thich Nhat Foundation guided meditations, and then there is Simhakriya, Upayoga, Ishakriya from Isha Foundation. These are very powerful. Especially Simhakriya is very powerful for boosting immunity. It just takes 3 minutes of practice per day, but it boosts your immunity like anything. And then there is Upayoga, Ishakriya. So these practices lead to a clear distinction between what is you, what is not you. It influences you at a deep level, and then thereby improve your well-being. Like that, there are many other resources. There is one from NIMHANS as well, tele-yoga resources. So there are yoga sessions happening, being conducted by NIMHANS every day, morning and evening, for adults and children. It's a 30-minute yoga session, so you all can attend. It's a Zoom session, so you can register and attend. And if you ask me what are some of the books you have to read to understand more about well-being, different practices that you can do, so these are some of the best available books right now. Because I've been doing my PhD right now. Like I'm in my 5th year of PhD, and I've been working on this for the last 5-6 years now. So it's like these are the invaluable resources on well-being. And if you want to know more about the brain, how brain functions, and how does neuroplasticity happen, and how is human behavior, human beings tend to behave in different ways, starting from the worst to the best. There are violent people, most criminal people are human beings. At the same time, most compassionate, most altruistic people are also human beings. So there's a wide range of behavior in human beings. So why do we behave the way we behave? So that's this book talks about that. And then this is a great book by David Eagleman, which talks about the brain, the story of you. And this is a recent book by Lisa Feldman, neuroscientist Lisa Feldman Barrett, which talks about 7.5 lessons about the brain. So that's all for this presentation. And if you have any doubts, queries, anything related to research or well-being, you can just mail me at saket3021@gmail.com. And like maybe in a 1 month or 2, we would be creating some support groups for well-being. And if you would like to be added to that, to understand more about well-being from the scientific point of view, at the same time from a practical point of view, you can just please mail me with your willingness to be part of this. So each moment offers you a choice to create well-being for yourself and everyone around you. Thank you. And so any questions, you can just unmute yourself and ask me right now.
Sir, good morning, sir. This is Sukanya.
Good morning, Sukanya.
So, I work as a student counselor.
Yes.
I perfectly understand the need to develop self-awareness among children. But creating that awareness, how do we do it? Because these days, children are not much interested in knowing about themselves, or just to find out, what's happening inside. Making them sit for 5 minutes without thinking, it is a boring factor for them.
Yeah,
so how do we cultivate that? Because at this point of time, the schools are going to reopen in Tamil Nadu. So children will be coming back. they have to be, they have to be rehabilitated to schools to sit for 5 to 7 hours, prepare and all those things.
Yeah.
How can this awareness be created? Because not all the children, say for example, in a class there are 50 children, 5 children will be quietly for 5 minutes. What about the 45 odd children who don't want, who find it boring? But the effect will be that be done, sir. If you can help me with that, I'll be more grateful.
Yeah. So children, you can't make them meditate because what they need is not meditation, but what they need is enhancing their body and mind to their to its peak. For example, as children.
Come again. Your voice is not proper. It is.
You hear me now? No, I'm telling what children need to do is they should work on their body and mind, body and brain instead, I would say. So what I mean by that is they should invest their activity in a lot of physical activities. They should invest their time in a lot of physical activities. Say instead of playing these online games, they should be, the parents should motivate them to play sports. Family members can get together and play some sports, enroll them in some sports like say cricket, tennis, badminton, whatever it is. So the body needs to be strong first, and then they can invest some time. This also leads to strong mental foundations. At the same time, they can be encouraged to do something which they like, and not some online games. For example, some children might be interested in music, learning music. Some children might be interested in painting. So whatever these talents they have, those should be nurtured. Meditation is not something which they can do at their age. Parents should meditate so that children see that, and then they also inculcate that over a period of time. It cannot happen immediately. So as children, all they should do is play sports, play a lot of sports, and learn a lot of things which are good for the brain, like music, arts, dance. Classical dance is very good, and arts, and anything which they find passionate about. And parents should also regulate their screen time, because these days everything is happening online. Zoom meetings and classes are happening online. Children are gaining access to technology. So that should be minimized. Parents should regulate their screen time, because over a lot of screen time leads to, especially in the children, leads to changes in the brain, which leads to less self-regulation and also leads to anxiety, depression, all these things as time goes on. So this is a very important thing which parents should do. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Sukanya. Any other questions?
सर हेलो
Yeah, please.
सर इनकेस है सर मैं पूछना चाहती हूँ, जब कभी भी कोई भी मैं से बोलता है मेडिटेशन करो, या मैं किसी से बोलती हूँ एज अ काउंसलर, तो बहुत सारी थिंकिंग है जो हमारे माइंड में आते जाते हैं। तो क्लाइंट ये बोलता है मेरे से कि मैम इसको कैसे कंट्रोल करना है। तो सर मैं क्या बताऊं कि कैसे इसे कंट्रोल किया जा सकता है, क्योंकि थॉट्स तो कभी भी ब्रेक नहीं होते हैं, थॉट्स आते रहते हैं। तो सर उसके लिए अगर कुछ टिप्स हो तो प्लीज।
Yeah, so the whole problem is because mind has not been trained for a long time, it thinks. It's the nature of mind to think. Just like our heart beats and and lungs breathe, mind also thinks. That's the nature of mind. So all you need to do is you need to tell your clients to disidentify with the thoughts. Whatever thoughts may come, just tell them to ignore that. Only if you identify with your thoughts, that's it. Otherwise, thoughts are happening. What's the problem? They can just keep happening, right? And if they keep on doing that over a period of time, the frequency of thoughts keep going down. So that's the only way. And also at the same time, there are some things which people can do it more easily. For example, yogasanas. It's like it's very easy for the clients to do. You can just guide them to some resources and tell them to practice yogasanas every day. Or pranayama. Pranayama is very effective because
Okay.
there's a direct connection between the breath and the mind. So when your breath slows down, mind also slows down. So it's much easier to handle the breath than the mind. So you can tell them or uh,
Pranayama and yoga.
simple forms of
Yeah.
pranayama or mantra chanting.
Okay,
Even
sir.
mantra chanting, it doesn't, because you are using some mantra to handle your mind.
Right, sir.
So these are
Thank you so
different
much,
things.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Anusha is asking, I think there are some questions in the chat box as well. Uh, can you please show the list of meditation slides, sir? Will you be able to share this PPT with us? Yeah, I will. I think this video is already recorded. It's already on YouTube. You can also look at it there, and also I will share the resources. Uh, so as you can see, if you can see my screen right now, these are the resources for well-being. I will share this with Dr. Debasis ji. Sir, I have one question. What kind of meditation is found to be effective in increasing well-being or decreasing the default mode network? So yeah, it's a good question, Sritamare. So there are different forms of meditation which increases well-being and decreases default mode network. There is, there are several types of meditation. The objective is not what type of meditation. Only thing is, whatever you take, you stick to it. And the problem is, a lot of people take up meditation, they practice for 1-2 days or 1 week, and they stop it. The whole thing is to stick to it. You might feel unpleasant in the beginning, but just stick to it as face that unpleasantness, and as time progresses, you will see that the distance develops. This meta awareness comes, this cognitive distancing happens, and then you can clearly notice that your mind is not troubling you anymore. So it is not about what kind of meditation, but how well you practice it, how sincerely you practice it, rather. That's more important, actually. And it need not be also, it need not be sitting in one place and doing. For example, if you like walking, you can just go outside, walk while paying attention to what's happening around you. You can pay attention to the wind. You can pay attention to your footsteps. You can pay attention to the sound. All these ways, these methods are just trying to root you more and more in the present moment. So there are several things that you can do actually to, and even while you are working, for example, you're in your home cooking. Even while cooking, you can be in that state of meditation. You can be in that meditative state, rather. So while cooking, you just pay attention to what you're doing. Very, pay close attention to what you're doing, how you're doing. Smell that food taste, food smell. That and then pay minute attention to everything that you do while taking bath, while washing utensils. You can pay attention to the sensations and all these things. So there are several things that can be done. Yeah. So this is something that everybody can do, and it doesn't take much time. Even if you spend 1 minute per day with yourself and with your mind, observing your mind, spending in meditation, that leads to changes. That's how powerful brain is, and that's how neuroplastic brain is. So invest some time every day. Even if you don't have a lot of time, at least 1 minute. 1 minute is not a lot of time, right? It's so easy. So that 1 minute will lead to something big in the long term. Yeah, that's it. I think it's only 11:10. If you have any other questions, you can mail me directly to saketreddy21@gmail.com. And this resources for well-being, I will share with Debasis ji. he can share with all of you people. Or you can just mail me. I can share you these resources, these links, everything directly.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for such an amazing session today, and thank you for taking out the time to give this session to us. I would kindly request Debashish sir to say few words, sir. Debashish sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Agrima. And the session was actually very nice, and it's unbelievable. And my heartily thanks to Saket sir, as well as all my team members, all the audience, those who are present here, and as well as the supporting staff members and officials. So, with this series of episode, we just completed our first series. Uh, how the brain functioning during COVID-19, how it can be enhanced, and how the things are going on inside our brain in the perspective of neuropsychological or neurophysiological processes. So it know the more thing about uh, which beyond the science and neuroscience. So actually, today's session is very appreciable, and again I thanks to Saket sir for his valuable time and impacting the knowledge and the experiences to sharing with us. Thank you, sir. Thank you from NAMAH team, and thank you to all from all side of our members.
I've also shared my email address in the chat box. You can, Debashish, I will share you the resources. You can share it with whoever asks you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. It is already YouTube live.
Sure.
So once you just check it, to get a link, and as well as soon as possible, I am sharing the
Yes.
PPT with all of you. Okay. Thank
Sure.
you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone,
Thank you.
for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, sir. You too, sir.
Yeah. Bye.
Have a good day. With this, we are ending our session today. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you so much,
Have a good
ma'am.
day.
You too, ma'am.
Yes.